This episode of Nintendo Expansion Pass is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our family of podcasts, head over to patreon.com/bossrushmedia or search for us on the Patreon app on your smart device. Thanks for helping us build something better. Hello everybody, welcome to Breaking Nintendo here on Boss Rush Games. I'm your host and Latin exciting Eddie V. Joining me is the one, the only Bossman himself, Mr. Corey Derrick.
Hello, I'm ready to rank some Nintendo.
Yes! And everybody, it's the sophisticated and lovely Miss Stephanie Kilmore. Yes!
Hey, hi, I'm back. I'm ready to continue this journey with you guys.
Well,
Yeah.
This is the final one, everybody. We are ranking the Nintendo Switch.
Hoo.
We have ranked all the consoles, most of the handhelds. We excluded the Retro Boy and CDI, even though those are not owned by Nintendo or anything. And wow, the Nintendo Switch, a system that is still ongoing now.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into this ranking, I remember the trailer happened and me and Corey, we rewatched it and did Nintendo react to it with the trailer.
Yeah, because it was... No, we didn't. Because the first trailer released while I was on my honeymoon.
Oh.
And I watched it in bed in our suite while my wife was taking a shower. And then I ended up making an Instagram video about it.
Aw.
So, yeah, that was like the first week of November in 2016.
Wow. Do you think we'll even be able to have so much excitement for the next console? Because I feel like, well, that's a conversation for another day, I guess. But I hope we are able to have that same level of excitement next time.
I mean, I think more people are excited now, which makes it more exciting because everybody hated the Wii U.
I
And so,
guess. But I don't know. I
uh,
just feel like their next iteration isn't going to be that much different.
good. I want it to stay the same. I mean, by the time this comes out, you guys will have heard our first episode of Ranking Nintendo, and that's all I talked about was how I don't want it to change. And I think that, this version of Nintendo,
Or you mean next gen?
no, I'm saying this iteration of the company, right, with Furukawa as president
Mm.
instead of Iwata and Doug Bowser, and the kind of corporate overhead is more they're probably more conservative than someone like Iwata and Reggie, right? Because I mean, they're not front and center like Iwata and Reggie were. There's no wacky ideas. They're having their developers do the Nintendo Directs instead of them, right? So that's where I'm going. I just also, side tangent, heard a rumor today on a podcast with pretty knowledgeable insiders saying that Nintendo is looking to have a pretty beefy console this next generation. They're really investing in the tech, but they're not looking to change things up a lot, which is telling me that it's just going to be a beefy Switch, which I'm excited for.
A Switch Deluxe.
Just don't use Switch U or Switch.
Or Super Switch.
Yeah,
I,
just put a
I
big old 2 on it. I don't care. Make
no,
it distinctly different.
I think they're trying out different names for their next console.
Well, they shouldn't, because they tried it with the Wii U and it failed.
I said different names, not the same name, just with an upgrade. Wii U
Anyways.
was fine. People just didn't comprehend.
Nobody understood. Okay.
Well, for me, it wasn't because of the name. That's for sure. Name was the least of my problems with the Wii U.
Yeah, that's fair. But the games. Number 1 right now in our rankings, by the way.
Which I don't agree with, but that's fine.
Hmm, you know, that's okay. You can be wrong. So, I'm
Well,
just but seriously.
let's just get into a little bit of history. It's been 6 years since the first Nintendo Switch trailer was revealed. It was released worldwide on March 3rd, 2017. The OLED version released on October 8th, 2021. It was priced at $299.99 and it was region free. You had a choice to get the two gray Joy Cons or ones with the red and blue Joy Cons. Now with the OLED, you have a choice of getting the black ones and or the white system. Nintendo Switch Online is introduced. It started with NES and SNES games. Now there's expansion pass that has N64 and Sega Genesis, along with free DLC as long as you got Nintendo Switch Online. So games like Animal Crossing and Mario Kart, you have that free DLC for those games. And then we do have the Switch Lite, where it's just only portable. It's nothing that's in a that comes with a dock or anything.
Hmm.
So, um, and it's still going. I think right now, it's like
114 million as of
million.
the last financial report, as of last quarter.
Did they surpass the Game Boy by now?
Nope.
Okay, they're
Mm.
but yeah, I think
Uh,
they will.
I think the only thing, well, maybe they did. Hold on, let me switch
'Cause
sales
I know they
compare.
made another milestone, and I forgot what, if it was the Game Boy they surpassed or it was another system, but,
Yeah, let me. Um,
we'll keep going while,
yeah,
Corey looks.
Yes. So, um, for anyone who remembers the trailer, it starts out like in this neighborhood, different shots at night, and this guy is playing Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and his dog is barking, wanting to go outside, and so he gets up, he goes to the switch, and it shows the console in the dock. He puts the Joy Cons on the system, and then the music starts playing, and then that's where we get Rooftop Karen. uh that's where we get the guys playing Splatoon and NBA, and then that's when we see Skyrim in it, and everybody was just like,
mhm.
wait a minute, Skyrim on
Yeah,
Switch?
that guy on the plane.
Mm.
He like
Yes.
put his. So first of all, I've never seen a tray table that big on an airplane. Sorry. I mean, I know I haven't traveled like first class or anything, but like, never seen a tray table that big. He literally takes the Joy Cons off. He puts the Switch on the tray table, and then he decides to play with the Joy Cons on the tray table.
I'm
And I'm
pretty
like,
sure that wouldn't annoy anyone.
that guy, he's not on a plane. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just had to
So
air my grievances about that.
uh uh there was the E3 one all like that too. The way that that one was shot and everything, and I think that's when they showed like Rocket League, um and some other games. In February of 2017, or was it was it January or was it February, Corey? I think January.
The big Japan stage show thing that they did?
Yeah,
It was January.
it was
It was like
January.
January 10th or so, because that was our first show back for when we were still doing Nerds Gone Rogue stuff. That was our first show back. Was we all did that watch along? Remember, all like 8 or
Oh
9 of us,
yeah.
and we were the only ones excited, and everybody else was making fun of it.
Yeah. So, we got like Shin Megami Tensei. We got Arms that was showed in there. Splatoon 2 was announced, like shown there. And that's when we learned like the price and the release date. And so when it hit March 3rd, the final Wii U game came out, and the most anticipated and wanted game came out, which is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Well, I thought you were
Um,
gonna say Cars 3: Driven to Win, which was the
oh,
actual last big budget
oh,
Wii U game.
Nintendo first party game. Then I
I
should
know, I
say.
was just messing with you. I'm just Peanuts.
And I remember that when they showed off all the people who were going to be making games and the ones that was coming out, people thought that Nintendo wouldn't have a good launch lineup or a good year. That people really thought the Switch was going to fail, but Nintendo in their first year, 2017, had big hits, first party
Hmm.
wise.
Hmm.
You know, Breath of the Wild, Arms, Splatoon 2, Super Mario Odyssey, Mario
Hmm.
Kart 8 Deluxe, which is still selling. That's like
54 million
crazy.
units at this moment.
Like that, I I never knew a system to have two games or actually three games for a little bit. That was like a attach rate to a system, like
Well,
Animal Crossing. Oh, go ahead.
remember Zelda had a over 100% attach rate for a long time because
Yeah,
everybody that bought a Switch at launch like bought Zelda, and then everybody that was waiting to buy a Switch also bought Zelda. So that it was like a there's like 103% attach rate for Zelda for a few months, which is
Wow.
hilarious.
yeah.
By the way, I have the list here. The Switch is currently the best selling console of all time. It is less than 3 million behind the PlayStation 4, which it
Mm,
is due to catch this year.
hmm
It is a little over 4 million behind the Game Boy family of consoles, which is the Game Boy, Game Boy Pocket, and Game Boy Color, also due to catch that this year. And then uh, the Switch has sold 117.2 million units. Uh, the DS has sold 154.2 million units, and the PlayStation 2 has sold 155 million units. So it probably won't catch those two consoles, but
hmm
it will probably be in third place by the time the year is over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on a special edition of Nintendo Switch because a lot of people have been picking up some of those editions, the Animal Crossing, the
Oh,
Pokemon, the
well,
Smash
we
one.
know that ugly Zelda one's coming out this year.
We don't know anything about the Tears of the Kingdom Switch
Yes, we do.
yet.
Yes, we do. We
We
secretly do.
we will see probably in March or April, whatever they have planned for us.
They'll
Uh,
reveal it at the next direct, which is theoretically next week as of the time of this recording.
Real. Oh my gosh. And they're
Been the
gonna let
second
us know a day before.
It's been the second week of February, 5 out of the last 7 years. So,
yeah,
oh man. Direct. That means the direct recap show is coming up, guys.
Oh
of
yeah.
course, yes,
This one's gonna be a big one. A banger.
Gonna be beefy.
yes. So, um, let's get into the Nintendo Switch. I have the original one and a OLED. Corey, you have all three of them, and Stephanie, you have the original and OLED. Correct?
Yep.
Yes. Um, outside of just being Nintendo fans and getting this system at when it came out, because I got mine on layaway and everything. Um, what was it about the Nintendo Switch that grabbed your attention and everything?
So I can start. People have been listening to these rankings. They know my history that for the most part, a lot of it had to do with budgeting. I kind of went alternated between Sony and Nintendo consoles. I first started with, Game Boy Color and N64. Then I swapped to the PS2. Then I went to the Wii, and then I went to PS4. So I was kind of due for a Nintendo console. Now I didn't see the first announcement ever because I wasn't really super. I didn't have my ear to the ground on the industry yet. But as soon as I finally found out about the Nintendo Switch, two things. It was the fact that the launch game was Legend of Zelda, which was my number one franchise for me. That's the sole reason why I kept playing video games. And number two, I really loved the ability to switch, no pun intended, between handheld and console. Like I know it sounds like a really obvious answer, but that was perfect. It's just like freaking genius. I don't know. And that was the first time I've ever bought a console day one. first ever day one anything purchase. I was at work. I made my husband at the time go buy it for me on March 3rd. I'm like, you go to the mall and I don't care how many stores it takes, you buy it. So the first place he goes had Legend of Zelda, but no Switch. He must have hit up, and I appreciate him for it to this day. I still appreciate you. 3, 4 different places before he went to a brick and mortar Amazon store. Believe it or not, there was one of those. It's not there anymore. And they had some Nintendo Switches left, and he got it for me. And that's kind of, yeah. It's a perfect draw. You know, I do like handheld games. Um, I just love the flexibility.
If you want to be a Patreon producer, head on over to patreon.com/bossrushmedia and find out which tier is right for you. Our Patreon producers at the $5 tier or higher for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dierig, Francisco Santillan, and Rebecca Jewell. Thank you for your continued support.
I remember we had been talking about at the time codename NX, or the NX at that time. Me and Corey was, and when the trailer dropped, because I think the trailer dropped just out of nowhere. Like I don't think Nintendo was even planning on announcing uh anything. Oh, go ahead, Corey.
Oh, I was just unmuting because I was going to answer you, but
Oh, go ahead.
uh, oh, they just dropped the trailer on their YouTube channel at like 7 o'clock in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and it was crazy. It was weird. It was crazy because like what they did, they dropped that trailer. They dropped like the teaser trailer in October, and then they showed the full trailer, I think, in November. And then yeah, and it was just crazy because they just said, it was like this 20-second tease, I think. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
remembering that wrong, but it was like it wasn't the full trailer yet, I don't believe. And so when they dropped that first trailer, like, of the rooftop stuff, it was like, oh my gosh, this is like everything we wanted the Wii U to be, right? Because it was like
Mm-hmm.
the handheld gaming thing promise that connects to your TV. And we started talking about all this stuff, and obviously we talked about Zelda for like 3 years, right? So
Yes.
uh that was a big deal. um Man, remember when they showed the first Zelda trailer, and it was just called
Ah,
Zelda Wii U at the time, and it was
yes.
just Link on a horse in the field, and then he was running from the Guardian, right? And then he turns around, and like in slow motion the arrow unfolds, and then he shoots the Guardian with the arrow, and then the
Mm-hmm.
whole big debate was like, is that Link? Is Link a girl in this game? Are you going to be able to choose your gender in this game? Are you playing as a different character? And then it obviously ended up being what it was. But like, man, that first trailer was incredible.
Enuma, when he started talking about it, and I remember he snapped his finger and you seen this lush beautiful land, and everybody mouse was agape.
Oh yeah, and it was like the first open world Zelda. Everyone was like, "Huh?
Yeah.
Zelda? Open
Hmm.
world?" It was just, I don't know, mind blowing. This big different thing. Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
then the real trailer, open your eyes. Dee-dee-dee. And that one, literally in the first 3 seconds, Nintendo won E3 with just that trailer. People laughed, be like they only bringing really one game, and when everybody seen that trailer and just watching every preview of that game, it was kind of amazing on seeing it, on how people just like, how did one little game that only gave us 3 seconds win E3, and that was it.
Well, remember when they showed it off, even at that E3 before the Switch came out, and they were just like, yeah, this is going to come out on our next console also. And Zelda was the only game they had there. They
Yes,
showed like how many hours did Treehouse show Zelda off and show off the amiibo and stuff?
they
And
they
like
literally showed the rest of the whole E3, like all
Yeah,
4 days.
and they never left the Great Plateau, right? And we were we I remember doing our watch along that year, and we were like, "This game's gonna be so massive. Like, this game's gonna be humongous," and it ended up
Hmm.
being huge, right? But like, they didn't leave the first area, and then they would zoom out right on the map, and
Yeah,
then it would zoom out again, and then they would zoom out again, and they just kept pulling the map out, and the map was humongous, and they showed the Great Plateau, and it was like this little itty bitty thing. It was, man, covering Zelda when it was first coming out was incredible. It was the only other thing I can really compare it to at the time, uh, was when they announced like The Force Awakens, and
hmm,
you had no idea like who Ray was or where these characters are going or what's going on in the story or whatever. They just showed that first tiny like reveal of, Star Wars is coming back. That's what I got. That's the feeling I got when we saw Breath of the Wild, was like, this world is massive. What are we doing in this game? Like, where, and then they started showing off the amiibo, and then the Wolf Link amiibo, right?
yes.
Had promised that they was going to work in Breath of the Wild, and that amiibo is so great. I hope they utilize it in Tears of the Kingdom. But
And it was the thing about the Switch just after the release of March was the indie games that was coming, the third party games like
well, there weren't
when
that many third party games. The only
at
third
the
party games they showed off were Street Fighter, which was their kind of like their highlight May
mhm,
game to go along with Fire Emblem on 3DS, and then Bomberman. Right? They didn't have any third party games. They had, I guess, Mario plus Rabbids we knew at E3, but like,
mhm.
we really didn't find out about any third party games until after E3, because
It was
that fall was the first time we saw major third party games, because we were excited that Doom and Wolfenstein were coming, and
right.
then they released
That's
Skyrim.
that's right. That's what we were. I was about to get into because it was just like with Bethesda being a big part and Square Enix soon becoming a big part, and then Ubisoft becoming like, I mean, yeah, we got the FIFA games from EA. Okay, fine and stuff. But then, like, it had gotten to a point where a lot of the third party who were porting games, a lot of the indies who were making new games and bringing it to Switch just the first year, it started raking up talk about video game sales and physical. Like, cartridge when the Switch cartridge came, of course people were just like, don't let your kids lick it or don't lick it and
Mm.
stuff and everything. When the cartridge came, every the talk about physical media jumped because we were getting indie games because with unlimited run or 8-bit, some of the other ones and stuff. And like when we saw Ori and the Blind Forest, everybody just like, when is that coming to Switch? Like, Switch had over a period of time had took in that I would play a lesser version of this on Nintendo Switch if I could, if you just port it over. You know,
Well, that was the kind of like, you were sacrificing quality for portability, because
mhm,
like, even at the time, like, Doom 2016 was such that like that was such an important milestone, I think, for third party
yes,
development on Switch, because Doom has always been known as a PC powerhouse type game, right? And
yes,
the fact that it was running on a Switch was ridiculous and crazy. And then, Wolfenstein 2 ended up coming over, and it was equally as ridiculous and crazy. Uh, and Bethesda to this day still supports the Switch to an extent. So, it's just it's wild, man. This the stuff that we ended up getting on Switch, later on, like The Witcher, and just yeah.
and Stephanie, I kind of want to take your take on this because me and Chris talked about it. Microsoft and Nintendo working together, getting like Steve and
Mm.
Minecraft, but then seeing Ori and Cuphead hit Switch, like, that was insane. It's just seeing that Microsoft and Nintendo were were kind of buddy buddy at a time. I would say because they it looked like they felt good business deal. What was your like reaction to that?
Well, the way I kind of found out about that was when I did pick up a physical copy of Ori and the Blind Forest, and I flipped it over, and then just like a light bulb went off in my head. I'm like, wait a minute, how'd this happen? So again, like I wasn't really knee deep into the industry at the time, but I never thought that Nintendo and Microsoft were that close before. So I'm like, maybe this is a new partnership. Maybe I don't know. And I don't know. It was a pleasant surprise, and I was hoping we would have more of that in the future. So yeah.
You know, definitely like with Minecraft, that was big because
Hmm.
they were Microsoft were doing exclusive stuff with Nintendo to get like the Mario stuff in Minecraft. Now, I wish it was equal billing that Nintendo let them also do that. But you know, we kind of got a glimpse of what if Xbox because Xbox Live became a big thing. Game Pass became a big discussion if we could do it on Switch because like
And I
uh
still think they want to. I still think that's the end goal, right? Is to have,
mhm.
obviously Nintendo's been experimenting with cloud gaming in different ways with third parties, right? With Control and Hitman and Resident Evil and stuff.
Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, gosh, yeah, Kingdom Hearts. But I still think I'm telling you, whatever Nintendo's next console is going to have Xbox cloud gaming in some capacity. I still totally 100% believe that.
We had that discussion because Microsoft is not doing good in Japan. They may be doing fine now, but they weren't like a big hit in Japan. And when me and you were talking, Corey, that Nintendo can be that middle ground that get players into the
Hmm.
Microsoft
Mhm.
um ecosystem. And that would be literally that would be cool. I think Microsoft would be cool with that. Hey, we got Game Pass. It's part of Nintendo Switch Online, and hey, $70 the whole year. You get this service. You get this cloud-based service. So not only do you play Microsoft games on your next gen Nintendo system, you can still play them on Series X or PC or wherever you prefer to play besides PlayStation.
Mm,
You know.
Yeah. I
yeah.
think that's great. A great crossover when we started seeing those games, and that having Game Pass or something would
Mhm.
make. I can't. My brain's dead. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, because when I was, however many years ago, I still only consider Xbox as, oh, it's the first person shooter console. Like totally not my interest. A bunch of
Mhm.
punks play Xbox and all they do is shoot stuff all day. And then I'm like, oh wait, they come out with like other cool games. So Nintendo allowing or working a deal with Microsoft to have games come over, and I'm sure not vice versa, but helps. It's again, it benefits the gamer. It can open up our eyes and see that Xbox can come out with non first person shooters, for example. So
Yeah.
It and some of the people who left Nintendo has gone to Xbox. The one guy who used to be over the indie directs and stuff, he went to Microsoft
Oh
for
yeah,
their
I remember
indie.
that guy. The guy who took
Uh,
over for Dan Adelman after he left, right?
yeah,
Um, the black guy with glasses. I know who you're talking about.
yeah,
But yeah, he ended up going to Microsoft to kind of like be a part of their ID at Xbox program.
yeah, and it really worked for him. You
Mhm.
know, I think that that's really cool and everything. And then it comes to 2019.
mm,
And we thought that Switch was because Nintendo Switch was still consistent in sales. Like they were
Mhm.
almost the biggest sale every month. Different games were coming out, and then it hit uh July, August, and September.
Oh my
The
gosh, that September was ridiculous. Like everything was so expensive in September, or like September was going to be an expensive month if you bought
yeah,
everything.
but man, getting hit with Fire Emblem Three Houses in July to go to uh Astral Chain in August, and I think Dead Cells hit that month too.
Well, hold on. You missed two very important games in Mario Maker and Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 in July also.
Oh yeah, that is. I thought Mario Maker was Mario Maker in June,
It
or no,
was
was that?
it was before, I think that was, man, I don't remember now. I used to keep track of all the stuff. Now I can't remember. Mario Maker 2 release date. June 28th. So like
Okay,
that kind of kicked, that was like the first game that kicked everything off, and then it was, right, it was Mario Maker,
yeah,
and then Fire Emblem, no, and then Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and then Fire
yes,
Emblem, and then Daemon X Machina, and Astral Chain, and Dragon Quest 11, and Link's Awakening, and The Witcher, and NBA 2K, right? Like that was your cadence for 3 months.
like like everybody was just like, I think we were spending close to 500 plus some dollars, and we were trying to get everything like on day
It's
one.
more than that.
Uh, um, because it was buggers. Like, who would
Yeah.
have thought that September alone
Hmm.
would do it? Because and it really kind of started in 2018, Corey and Stephanie, because we had the Game Awards. And the first, that 2018 Game Awards was insane because you had the reveal of Ultimate Alliance 3. You had Joker in Smash,
Hmm.
from Persona. And people lost their minds. And regardless of how all of those games out, Fire Emblem Three Houses, you're talking about being the hardest game to find. I think they were having problems with the physical because no one could get a copy of the physical game the week it was released. People had
Yeah.
to wait almost like 2 weeks. The same thing almost happened with Astral Chain. And then the reveal of Link's Awakening in 2018. When everybody saw the trailer, they were just like, okay, what's this new animation? Gas across the industry. Like, Nintendo, what are you doing? When we found out Grezza was remaking it, that was insane. We didn't really feel that insanity until, well, for some people it was with Banjo Kazooie coming to Smash. But
Hmm.
then we
Oh,
saw Metroid Dread, and we were just like, "What is this?
yeah.
Wait, wait, what?"
Hmm.
And like that's blew up. And then we got the white OLED switch
Oh yeah.
and everything. Um, Monster Hunter Rise, and the reason I mentioned Monster Hunter Rise is because we didn't know that we was getting a Monster Hunter game, and Capcom started that direct with their
Well,
presentation, and we just like, wait, what?
well, the rumor had been out there that there had been a Monster Hunter in the works for Switch, separate from Monster Hunter World.
Hmm.
But then that rumor kind of went quiet because obviously Monster Hunter World took off and Iceborne was, the biggest thing, biggest expansion ever in Capcom history or whatever.
Yes.
And then Monster Hunter World ended up going on to be like, that game is still Capcom's best selling game of all time, which is crazy to think about how, because you think about Monster Hunter Generations on 3DS, that game was so niche, and then they turn
Hmm.
around, hardly selling what 2 million units, I think, maybe in lifetime, and then you go on to sell almost 20 million copies of your next version of that game, which is uh but we kind of knew that Monster Hunter was in the works for Switch, but then like I think that rumor died down because they ended up porting Generations Ultimate to Switch, and everybody just
Yeah.
assumed that that was going to be the Switch version. Because Capcom came out and said they couldn't get the RE engine to run on Switch, right?
Yes.
That's why Resident Evil 7 didn't come to Switch initially, is because they said we just can't get this engine to run on the hardware. It has nothing to do with the technical limitations in terms of power. It's just that this engine is not designed for mobile architecture, it's designed for x86 architecture, which is really a lot of the reasons why there's issues porting things to Switch in the first place. But and then they ended up getting that engine to run and really modifying its own version of that engine for mobile hardware, and then obviously Monster Hunter Rise is what it is now, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, and by all accounts, some people, not all people, but some people like Rise more than they like World,
World.
which is cool.
Yeah. Of course, we had Dead Cells and Hollow Knight come to Switch.
Oh man,
Big
Mhm.
game. Dead Cells. Uh, what was so crazy about Dead Cells is that the way that it was announced,
hmm
like, I think they just they didn't even show a trailer yet. I think it got
oh,
spoiled from Best Buy or something, or it was like leaked or something
it
as an
was that
ad.
it was that animated trailer.
Yes.
I love that. I gotta tell you, it's probably one of
So
my favorite
good.
trailers.
I know, it's so cool. The animated trailers for that game is like
So brilliant.
probably probably 80% of the reason why I bought that game. Also, like, side tangent about Dead Cells, it was as a quote unquote podcaster or media person, not really media person, but Dead Cells was one of the first out of a handful of games that I ever played early,
Mm,
and because I played it at PAX that year, before it came out, and it was really cool. Talked to the developers a little bit about it, and that video on the Nerds Gone Rogue channel is the highest viewed video on that channel with like ridiculous amount of views.
Yeah, because this is when PC started playing a big role in Switch because
Yeah,
some of
that
the games
video,
that
the off screen. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
yeah,
The off because in the Nintendo booth, you're not allowed to like capture anything in the
mm,
Nintendo booth. You just have to do off screen stuff, and even then, they like still don't let you. I filmed 90 seconds of Dead Cells off screen, and it has 7,000 views.
oh
wow.
wow, yeah, I that came and this was the crazy part about Dead Cells, Stephanie, is that people, if they really wanted to play it, they would buy the digital. Most of everybody literally waited at the end of the month for the physical version because they released at different times, and people were just like, "I'm going to go buy the physical." Like
hmm
pre-orders for that game shot.
hmm
Um, Hades, which when they announced it as a Nintendo Direct, we were just like, "Wait, what?" And the thing about it is, that me and Corey had this talk because Hades was another game that was on PC that was in early access, and it when it hit Switch and everybody played it, the rogue like genre blew
Mhm,
up, and Hades ended up getting the awards that they deserve. Um, uh, Cuphead, when the Cuphead is a weird one because everybody was wanting Cuphead on Switch, and it's kind of weird that the way Cuphead was treated on PlayStation versus the way Cuphead was treated on Switch, because the way that they opened that direct up with leading with Cuphead and everything, it had more production value, and it was like after I think pre-orders went live after that direct, and it stayed at number one for almost 3 weeks. And then PlayStation versions came out, and they were just like, "Oh, it's on PlayStation 4." Okay, like that was bonkers.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's not to say that the other major publishers didn't contribute to this, especially like current modern day. I
mhm.
think there's indies everywhere, but I think Nintendo Switch really put a lot of indies on the map. It helped popularize, again, for lack of a better word, certain genres that maybe weren't so mainstream, like roguelikes. I've never bothered to play a roguelike until Hades and Dead Cells because of the Switch.
And then Stephanie Gree comes out of
Hmm.
nowhere, and the beauty of that animation and that trailer of that game, and just the music, like Green is low key one of the best indies on that ever came out, and I'm glad that PlayStation of course got it. I don't think Xbox got it. I wish they did, but man, seeing the Mata Studios that presentation and it come out and people were just it left. I mean, a lot of people. you know, probably may have some problems with it, and me and Stephanie did a talk walk with
Hmm.
Celeste and David. Something about greed, we were just like, this is breathtaking. I'm like, why is this game that's a 3 hour adventure that talks about grief having us feel this way and having us have this big discussion? And it was a game not to be missed. Um, uh, it, who knew that indie games would touch us? When it came to like narrative and style and look. Of course, we still had the 8-bit and 16-bit games and stuff. Um, but I think Switch was a place that it was welcoming to any style of graphics and animation that people wanted to put in and stuff. Of course, we Death's Door is another one where we were just like, it was so low key on Xbox, and it was one of those games to be like, you need to play this, you need to get Game Pass, you need to play this. And it kind of, I mean, people enjoyed it and it felt like a nerd, but then it hit Switch, and trust me, the physicals that came out, that everybody, and it was literally amazing that people were talking about that game and stuff. Um, when I seen the Kami HD on Switch, I'm like, oh, I just buy this. Come on,
Yeah,
Capcom. Don't do
that was I remember how excited you were for that, and you tried to get me to play it, and I hated it. I hated every
uh,
minute of it.
uh,
But it was
uh,
it was we had that game came out in what 2004, and I mean we had been playing games for you know upwards of 20 years
mm,
after that game came out, and like yeah, it was probably a great game. It's one of those games that you probably had to play at the time and really appreciate it. And I know a lot of people have love for that game too because it was really Platinum's last
mm,
hurrah as Clover before they left Capcom to go form Platinum. Uh, so
yes.
sorry.
Um, gotta say that with the Nintendo Switch brought in a lot of Japanese developer partnerships with Nintendo. We had Platinum, Bandai Namco, um, not yet Capcom or anything, but Kobe Tecmo. You know, that was kind of huge for Nintendo that they were working with these developers to bring games to their system, but also let them make new IPs for the system. When it came to Smash Brothers and Bandai Namco was developing it, when they said that this is going to be the game of all games with all the characters, it was, even though it's like heavily Square Enix and stuff. Seeing Sora come to Smash Brothers when I have fought everybody, just like Disney is not going to allow this. Square Enix is not going to allow Sora to come. Like, what would be his moves with this Keyblade? And they before they shut Smash Brothers down, the last character was Sora, and just the emotions. Um, I mentioned Joker and everything, but Sephiroth,
Oof.
that was a mic drop.
For you, for me, it was Sora.
I remember at first being a little disturbed when I saw the advertisement for Sephiroth where he like literally had his blade through Mario. I'm
Hmm.
like, "Oh, is that appropriate? Why would Nintendo allow that to happen to like their number one mascot?" Then I got over it, but I was just like a little taken aback.
Well, it was they had his sword went through his overall loop, and he was hanging there from his overall loop.
Oh, see, like from like just the still picture, it looked like he was
Yeah.
stabbed.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was like the big thing. Is like, oh my gosh, they literally murdered Mario, and then like it zooms in on it, and the sword is like through his overall loop, and Mario escapes it. It's like this.
like Nintendo noticed Final Fantasy VII, to pay homage to what he did to Error. And I kind of love it when I think it's Princess Peach or no, it's Zelda, I think. And they're got the Pikmin as the garden, and and they she's down on the ground. That was a really good trailer on how that was shot. The Oh my goodness. uh, the way when they introduce Banjo Kazooie, um, because of Donkey Kong Country and everything, and you see the jiggle puzzle leave, and it was just so funny with the dog coming out with the duck hunt bird, and it was just like, oh, y'all about to do this and
Mhm.
everything.
Wasn't my favorite reveal. Who's the other one? Kazuya from Tekken.
Mhm.
Yes.
No, but the reason was is because we were waiting and waiting. When are we getting Tears of the Kingdom stuff? Where are we getting Tears of the Kingdom stuff? And I distinctly remember they opened the direct with Ganondorf like looking kind of dead. And I'm like, oh my gosh! And it was
Me,
just Kazuya.
I, me and Stephanie lost it.
Oh, man.
I was like,
Yeah,
Nintendo so did that on purpose. I hate you.
that was funny.
uh,
That was funny
the
because,
fa-
like, I kinda like, I knew the like, just because I watched the direct late because I worked that day,
yeah.
and so, like, I knew it opened with Smash, and I had already seen that, like, the Tekken character was the reveal, and I was like, "Okay, I don't care, I'm just gonna skip ahead." So I didn't get that full experience until, like, what, he just kept throwing characters off the edge, and then Kirby ended up just floating away because Kirby lives all the time. God, Kirby. Ugh.
I
Kirby's the
love
worst.
Simon Belmont one with
But
Luigi.
mhm,
That was so funny.
I know the Castlevania one was really cool.
Yeah.
I'm not even a Castlevania person, but I actually really want those amiibo because they look so good.
Mm,
And I still like the Little Mac one when they brought Little Mac into Smash. And Sam is
Mhm.
just like, I'm this high, you're destroyed. And then Little Mac punches her and smashes her out. That's so funny. And everything. Yeah. The reveals for Switch games, whether it is funny or they just do a beautiful job, I think that made the Nintendo Direct live. You know, that everybody wanted to see it every time it got announced. And then when they introduced the Indie World stuff, all
mm,
of these games that were coming from around the world. And you kind of get the idea of why Microsoft's developer direct, why they kind of took their approach, because like in the indie world presentation, all the designers across the world were talking about their game in their own language, and uh revealing a little bit more, and it got a lot of people interested to show that games do come from everywhere. And when there are smaller games, it just feels like that Switch is the system that people will love to play them on. Now, of course, now we got the Steam Deck and
mm.
everything. Uh,
Well, I'll say something about the
but
Steam Deck real quick. I know ultimately, especially maybe the purists, will say that the Steam Deck isn't really meant to be a direct competitor to the Switch. Um, but I will say, just from my simpleton mind, I go to my Switch 9 times out of 10. I find that big ass deck way too cumbersome. It works great, and I love what I'm able to play with, and like how it executes visually, and the stupid frame rate thing. Like it's a good device, but for a handheld, it's actually a subconscious like turn off. I just almost always defer to my Switch.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the Steam Deck is gonna get some sort of slimmed down, redone version,
It
right? Like
will, yeah.
I mean, I think they've already said as much, right? That they're gonna make some sort of redesign after they figure out the best way to do it. So, um, but even though they're not direct competitors, I think I think a lot of people who prefer Switch look at the Steam Deck and are like, man, look at all the games that you can play on there. Like, what if the Switch was just a little bit more powerful or had
Mhm.
some sort of uh solid state drive in it, or it was built with x86 architecture instead of mobile Tegra architecture, like what could be different, and
mhm.
not that the Switch needs to be as powerful or as fully featured as the Steam Deck because it's Nintendo and it never will be, but like that's always been, at least on the Western gamers front, is like Nintendo is not powerful enough. it's just not powerful
Yeah.
enough, and as great as games like, Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and Fire Emblem and uh Paper Mario and all these games, as great as Nintendo games look, like, it's definitely we talked about this on the Boss Rush podcast a couple months ago, like, I would I would kill to have a Zelda game that looks like Horizon Forbidden
Oh,
West.
yeah.
Like, that huge open world, beautiful textures, l you can see the pores and the hairs on Link's face, right? Like,
Yep,
yeah,
that's exactly what I'm looking wanting to look at. Not the
yeah,
beautiful
well,
greenery and
you know
waterfalls.
you know what I mean. I just it, like, you
Yeah.
get all these close-up shots of, like, when PlayStation posts their, like, shots of the week, a lot of them are of Horizon Forbidden West, and, like, a lot of them are close-ups on Aloy or just, like, Aloy in the environments or some of the monsters and stuff, and you're just like, "Oh my gosh," like, if, like, that could be Zelda, like, Zelda could be
Mhm.
so cool like that, and the only thing that we ever got close to that was that Wii U tech demo, and we're just
Yeah.
never gonna get anything like that, which, as a Nintendo fan, I've come to just accept, but you always wonder.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Um, we do have Labo, which
Mhm.
also that came with Switch.
yep, came and
Um,
went, just like the cardboard box my Amazon package is coming.
but it was an engineer stream on teaching kids and everything, and see Ariana Grande on the Tonight Show doing No Tears to Cry with a band using the Switch and Labo to make that song. Like that was so cool and everything. Um, and then we got what's the workout one, Corey?
Oh, Ring Fit Adventure
Ring,
and
yeah.
fitness
Oh,
boxing.
mhm.
Yes, Ring Fit Adventure during the pandemic and along with Animal Crossing was huge,
Yep.
and it's still huge and everything. Uh, it's West for console gaming. Like he was streaming it. And and everything, and I was just like, this looks very interesting um to you. So Nintendo still had that innovative and creative way of
Mhm.
doing games of what they could do with their system and everything.
Mhm,
We got arcade games on it, on Switch, that some were released in America and others that weren't released in America and stuff. Um, Now Nintendo Switch Online with the NES, Super Nintendo, N64, Sega Genesis, like that made me smile because there's games on there that I never got to play and everything. And seeing Super Mario Brothers The Lost Levels or Super Mario Brothers 2 on the NES on there just made me happy because it'd be like, oh, you guys think that the Mario series is for kids? Play that game. And just wanted to see people die over and over and stuff.
mhm,
But then Tetris 99, Puyo Puyo Tetris, Tetris Effect Connected. Like when Tetris hit Switch, it was kind of just like, oh, they know what they're doing with the series and everything. Like
mhm.
I love Tetris Effect. Um, I love Puyo Puyo Tetris. Me and Corey talked about it for months or almost a year on Power Block and everything. That was Corey's bedtime game in a sense and
Yep,
everything.
still is once in a while.
You know,
So,
uh, Tetris 99 had Pac Man and
Mm. Oh, yeah.
other things and stuff. And then we got like Nintendo started experimenting with limited time games. So we had the Fire Emblem for the NES that was like 6 months. We got the Mario 3D collection with Mario N64. Mario 64, uh, Galaxy, and Sunshine. All on one cartridge and everything. You know how people were upset about that, but once again, the game was available for 6 months and nobody was like buying it and
Yeah, I
everything.
got a physical that's still unwrapped. I don't know if it's really gonna gain any value, but I have it.
Yeah.
You know, uh, and then we had the Nintendo Wii U ports, uh, uh, Fire Emblem, not Fire Emblem, Tokyo Mirage Station, FE Sharp, Mario Kart, Bayonetta 2 with Bayonetta 1 digital. Uh, we're hoping that we get Link's Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD on Switch and
It won't be
everything.
this year.
Uh,
Hmm.
and then the fight that me, Corey, and Dan had about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Because I was just like, it's not happening. There's no way. I'm like, they just released Xenoblade Definitive and the DLC to it. There's no way. Next thing you know, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 gets announced. And I'm like, dang, nabbit.
Yeah, I remember that Pow Block episode, and I that announcement was that week, right?
Yeah. And I had to admit that I was wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. I like when you're wrong. I like when you make bold predictions because it usually means the opposite is happening. That's why you keep begging for arms too, and it's never going to happen, and that makes me happy. So,
It's going to happen. I
nope,
know it is. It's
pass.
going to happen. Uh, but yeah, and we just had a ton of games and experiences with the Nintendo Switch. So,
Mhm.
anything else, you guys, about the Nintendo Switch? Any particular games that you want to highlight or spotlight, you know, any kind of like with the Pro controller, or like with the accessory and stuff, or stories with the system? Anything that you guys gotta um bring to the conversation?
I felt like the Switch was kind of my personal window to exploring other games. I brought it with me to one of my family reunions, and my cousin's a developer, and he was telling me about Snipper Clips. He was telling me about Untitled Goose Game, and all these other things.
Ooh, how big
Uh,
that game was.
mhm. I even played. I never finished the game. It's not Switch's fault. When Skyward Sword HD came out, I still utilize the motion controls. I did appreciate the OLED, the kickstand thing or the stand. I know it seems like such a
Yeah.
small improvement, but it makes a big deal. And I know,
Yes.
yeah, a lot of gamers, quote unquote, really were in a sense kind of making fun of the OLED because it's like, what, they're gonna sell it a little more expensive just for a freaking OLED screen? It's not even any better. Well, I'm like, I guess, but for me, it was great because I bought a day one Switch, and it sound every time I turn it on, it sounds like a plane's taking off. Which, by the way, still works, and it's now my son's. But I just think, yeah, it's just made a big impact on my life. I've played, Zelda games on there. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, even though Kirby's not my favorite Nintendo IP, I think they did a
Mhm.
really great job with that. I'm looking forward to the future where we're expecting Pikmin 4. The rumors of um, Metroid Prime, which I'm looking forward to because I never really played the Metroid series, and Metroid Dread was the first game that I played of that franchise. And Metroid Dread also, fantastic game. I loved the hell out of it.
Yes. Uh, uh,
So,
that was the one thing about Switch. Like, if it was your sorry about that, if it was your first time getting into a series, people were going back to play them and
Yeah,
everything.
remember when Dread came out or was announced, all of the Metroid games on 3DS and Wii U were like shot to the top of the eShop charts,
Yeah, yeah.
especially
Uh,
the Wii U because that's literally the only place you can play them all until you know, like
you're right.
because you can't play them on the 3DS. You can only play, you know, uh 1 and then the remake of 2 and then Super Metroid, but you can't play Fusion or Zero Mission because they're not available, and you can play Fusion and Zero Mission on the Wii U, which
Yeah.
is hilarious.
I remember. Sorry to everybody. When Wind Waker HD got announced for Wii U, everybody and their kids started playing the Legend of Zelda on the NES. And they was playing them all. They was making their kids play all of them before they got to the Wii U version.
mm.
And everything. And kids started um loving this stuff. Which reminds me, Symphony of the Goddesses. Uh concert.
Mm. Mhm.
Oh,
I want them to
which
come back.
exactly. I want to. I literally want to hear them play Breath of the Wild songs and stuff because, man, I went to that concert twice, and I want to go for a third time and
Same
everything.
here. I
Mm.
mean, it not just great music, but there's gameplay while it's going on, so it's just
Mm,
like blowing my mind. I'm like, yeah, Zelda everything.
yes, I just
You know
want
what
to
they should
cry.
do? They should invite Flute Guy from the Game Awards to Symphony of the Goddess. Have him do a little flute solo.
Yes. Uh, Corey, anything about Switch before we get to our final ranking?
I mean, I just think the Switch is we look at this entire history, right? I mean, we've literally gone through the entire history of Nintendo except for, a few of their ideas, right? I mean, obviously we didn't talk about Game and Watch at all or Virtual
Mm,
Boy or arcade stuff, but like pretty much the mainstream of Nintendo's hardware. You just look at all the history and the things they've tried to do with connecting their handhelds to their consoles or trying to mimic what they're doing on consoles on the handheld, right? Like, I mean, Link's Awakening started out as a Link to the Past remake or
Hmm.
port to the Game Boy, and then they just made their own game because Link to the Past was too big for the Game Boy. Uh, and you look at the Game Boy player on the GameCube, or connecting your Game Boy Advance to the GameCube through those wires, or the Game Boy player on Super Nintendo, or even the Wii U Virtual Console, where they tried to put DS games on your Wii U, which was insane, but
Hmm.
somehow still works. Dude, by the way, don't ever make me do the whole map flipping thing on uh Phantom Hourglass on the Wii U, because you literally have to like flip your
mm,
a gamepad upside down to face the TV and back, because the camera on the front of the Wii U gamepad uses the sensor bar to mimic the closing, so you can flip the map back onto the bottom. It's a whole thing. But like, they tried all these tricks, even like using the 3DS as a controller for Smash, even on the Wii U. Like, it was like
Hey,
this
I
whole thing
love that.
that you're one out of 2 million people. And you look at the Switch and the culmination of the history mixed with their innovative ideas, right?
mhm.
Like the motion controls of the Wii,
Very
handheld
well
stuff.
rounded.
It's like this is like Nintendo, like the pinnacle of Nintendo hardware design, and
Hmm.
all of their ideas pushed into one, mixed with not only new great games but classic games and ports. And like, the Switch, at the time of this recording, to me, the Switch is the definitive Nintendo console,
Mm.
hands down.
So can I say one more thing?
Yes.
It's not like the biggest complaint ever, but I really hope that they will not, if not speed up, but just they will continue adding more to their NSO expansion pack. Like
Mhm.
Hmm.
their NES, SNES, sure, great. N64 has been very slow going, and I know that they use the Mario Kart DLC to kind of buffer everything, but dang man, like I don't know. I feel like they could be doing more, or at least please don't stop. I want my Game Boy Advance. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have the Animal Crossing DLC through that too, and the
Yeah,
Splatoon 2
yeah,
Octo
blah blah
expansion is
blah blah
still on
blah
there. And
blah. And give me N64.
you have all the great N64 games. I don't know what else you want. What, Banjo Tooie and Perfect Dark are the ones that are missing, and then you have them all.
Okay, well there we go.
And
Chop
Diddy
chop,
Kong
Nintendo.
Racing.
Oh
Diddy Kong
Yes,
yeah,
Diddy
Racing.
Kong Racing, please.
Uh,
I want Mischief Makers on there.
no, nobody wants Mischief Makers.
The old school Rampage.
Hershey.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, their expansion. I think the trajectory their expansion pass is going holds a lot of promise for what a Nintendo online service can look like,
Hmm.
and I do hope they keep going. I don't know if they'll go past N64 in terms of consoles, but I think you could put Game Boy Advance on there. You
Mm,
could put Game Boy on there, and I think a lot of people would be satisfied because
Mhm.
I hooked up my GameCube the other day and played some GameCube games, which was great. But I think you're really starting to get into the era of 3D games for Nintendo that as long as they got some sort of HD polish,
Mhm.
those games would still look incredible today as they did back then. Like I was playing Luigi's Mansion. That game still looks incredible and it's 23 years old, you know?
23? Really?
Yeah.
It's been that long?
yeah,
Yeah, and like
yeah.
just the way that Luigi like walks around the mansion, the way his nose jiggles when he walks around and like the way he shakes all of the like the dressers and the lamps and stuff when he's looking for coins and the way he shivers when he sees a ghost and the game runs at 60 frames a second, like it's an incredibly polished experience for a game, like for a game that old. And
Yeah.
like i think I think Luigi's Man, I know we kind of got one on 3DS, but I don't count remakes on 3DS. They don't count except for the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, I guess. But like if I can't play it on my TV, it doesn't count. That's the rule. That's the rule.
Mhm.
But I think that GameCube era is primed for HD remasters.
Hmm.
Like it's just primed for that, and like I think that's where that Metroid Prime HD trilogy is coming from. You
Well,
know.
it's such an unexpected era from Nintendo with their games because you wouldn't even think about HD applying HD because of how great those games were. Like you like the way that you talk about Luigi's Mansion Story, I talk away about Metroid Prime. Seeing
Yeah,
that
yeah.
detail.
Metroid Prime still looks incredible too. I play a little bit of that too. Like, granted, the controls could totally be updated. That's controls are an issue in first person in that era in general, unless you were playing Halo at the time, right? But like,
It I think I didn't have no problems with the control. I think it was uh
well, my point is like at the time, yeah, the controls weren't a problem because everybody was still trying to figure it out. But
yeah.
but now first person and third person 3D games have a standardized controls system, right? Where the right stick is the camera, the left stick is strafe and walk around, right? Like
Hmm.
and Metroid is not like that. I think that's why a lot of people have trouble going back to something like Resident Evil 4 also, right? Because that stick is not a camera. Uh and so that's what I mean by like they could change the controls and make them feel more modern. If they added modern controls to Metroid Prime, that game would still be 100% playable today.
But that I think that would feel weird to me. I think it's because of it would feel weird to me because of the power selecting point of it.
Yeah, but you
How
can totally map that stuff to shoulder buttons or the D-pad, or like you hold down L1 and it pulls up a reticle. Like you could totally do a whole bunch of
mm,
different things to fix that. And I think after about 20 minutes you would be totally used to that.
it would. I think with the people who came to Retro to work on Metro Prime 4, some of the developers from Halo, Call of
Mhm.
Duty, and Battlefield, I think they could map those controllers to make it feel better.
Well,
Um,
yeah, that's
so
what I'm
I
saying.
so I could see that happening. I guess it was just when I think of the GameCube
Mhm,
version and doing the HD of it. Yeah, the
mhm,
graphics could look pretty, but I think it's because I'm so used to the game, the way the game controls on GameCube,
mhm.
that I would have to rewire my brain
Yeah.
and playing it and stuff because it took to me personally, like Metro Prime 3 on Wii took me a while to get because it was more free
Well,
roaming,
it
free
felt
floating.
more like aside from like the motion controls, right? It
Yeah.
felt more like a standard first person game, right? Where
Yes.
I mean, the Wii remote was your camera stick, right? And you use that to move the camera around, while the left stick was your strafe and walk kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so like coming back to Switch, right? Like as we look to the future, right now, as of this recording, it's February 3rd. Um, we still have a lot coming out, but like I still think, you know, I'm still of the belief that we have until spring of 2025 with the Switch at this point. Um, Metroid Prime 4 is kind of like the last big kind of thing on the roadmap, right? We know when Tears of the Kingdom is coming out. We know when Pikmin's coming out. Uh, we're getting another Kirby remake in that
Wait, do we
weird
really know when Pikmin's coming out? I thought it was just TBD.
2023. It said
Mm,
Yeah, but
so.
everybody's thinking it's one of the fall games
Yeah,
gotcha.
just
and
because
everything.
you know, with the announcement that shocker, Nintendo's not going to be at E3, guys. Some people are saying that they don't have a lot for the fall,
Mhm.
and so
So
y-
allegedly.
well, this them not having a lot for the fall tells me that we're going to get a lot of ports and smaller games and
Hmm.
remakes, which is where that Metroid Prime trilogy comes in, which is where Pikmin 4 comes in. Maybe you get a Zelda package this fall. You know, I still think there's a Let's Go Pokemon game coming this fall for Gold and Silver. That's just me. Uh,
Yeah,
but
and like I said, we don't
Detective
know.
Pikachu, I guess too.
Right, we don't know what Nintendo is working on
Hmm.
with a lot of the other developers. Like we talked about, what is Grezzo doing? You know,
Mm,
Nintendo works well with Grezzo. Can we see that Kid Icarus game
Oh
or
God, yeah.
something? Can we see The Legend of Zelda 2 being remade? Like what
Gross.
can we see another Paper Mario? Or can we see GameCube, Dreamcast hit NSO, TurboGrafx here in NSO, Sega CD, or the Saturn hit in NSO? Like there's a plethora of old systems that can hit the NSO that we don't even know about. But then, what is Platinum working secretly on? Because Platinum has been quiet lately. You know,
No, they
um,
just released Bayonetta 3 and they're releasing that Bayonetta
well,
Origins.
Well, yes, but I'm talking about like what is their next bigger major game? Like if they are working with Nintendo on something, um, is it something that's outside of Bayonetta? Is it like are they talking to Sega to be like, hey, let's put Vanquish on this mug and let's give them Vanquish 2? You know, like what Capcom? What are you not doing with Nintendo that you should be doing? You know, Hey, if trust me, if Nintendo was funding Capcom to make Mega Man Legends 3, that would be that would carry a big discussion with some people with that series and stuff. Um, what are they working with Microsoft on something? Is there like some deals going on, or is Microsoft even talking to Nintendo for their next platform to have something working with their online? Like, we don't know what's happening in the fall because after the Tears of the Kingdom, Nitty is being quiet. They're being
mhm,
suspiciously quiet because they know what they got planned. It's us salvating what they're going to feed us. And is it going to be good? Maybe. If not, we can eat we can eat on PlayStation and Microsoft because they're the ones that need to feed us. We
Mm.
got their beefy systems; they need to feed us.
mm,
Nintendo could be like, we could give you some diet stuff, and then straight hit you with craziness. Because Nintendo sometimes known for that. We'll be quiet and then hit you with some crazy stuff that you did not expect.
mhm.
Yeah. So
You know.
yeah.
But everybody, oh, go ahead, Corey.
No, I'm done. I don't
Okay.
have any.
But everybody, it is time to rank the Nintendo Switch. Now, before we give it the ranking, Corey, can you give us the rundown?
Yeah. Uh
Beep
oh.
beep beep.
Hollywood. There he goes. Ed's got an important phone call, everybody. Should we
Mhm.
try to mouth what he's saying from hello? My name is Edward. I am making an important phone call.
This
Uh,
is your mission, should you choose to accept it.
oh
Sorry.
no, his phone just self destructs in his hand. Oh no.
Oh no! Too soon.
um. All right. So the rundown of Nintendo of ranking Nintendo right now as it stands. I'm looking at this list. This list is so effed up. Number 9 is the NES. Number 8 is Game Boy Advance. Number 7 is Super Nintendo. Number 6 is Game Boy. Number 5 is DS. Number 4 is 3DS. Number 3 is Nintendo 64. Number 2 is GameCube. And number 1 is Wii U.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, for me, it's a no brainer that the Switch is number 1.
I
Like,
agree.
I
I,
agree.
I mean, the Switch is just the pinnacle of Nintendo hardware design. It's sleek. It's sexy. It has amazing games on it, whether they're old or new. It feels like a piece of tech instead of a children's toy, right? That was the
Mhm.
biggest complaint about the Wii U is that that tablet felt like if I sneezed wrong, that thing would snap in half. Uh, the Pro controller is super comfortable. Uh, I mean, I have issues with the Pro controller, but overall, it's a pretty good controller.
Mm.
Um, it's just a great machine, and if this was the last machine Nintendo ever made and they just iterated on it, I would be perfectly fine. If they just kept making more powerful Switches that were backwards
Mm.
compatible but had all the same features. And now granted they could clean up the eShop a little bit, right? They could be a little bit quicker on getting stuff out for expansion pass and Nintendo Switch Online and maybe add other consoles to it. But overall, I think right now the Switch is probably the best machine Nintendo has made, and maybe in a long line of future consoles, maybe the most important console they've ever made too. So, because remember, everybody thought Nintendo, if the Switch failed,
Mhm.
Nintendo,
Stakes were very high.
yeah, I mean, to me, Nintendo is too proud to go third party, but like that was the conversation, right? That was the conversation at the end of the Wii life cycle. Also, it was like, would Nintendo be better off just making third party games like Sega? Um, but the Switch was very important and proved that Nintendo still knows what they're doing in the hardware space. They obviously still know what they're doing in the game making space.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I think a mixture of having the old guard like Anuma and Miyamoto lead design while they give the younger generations the freedom to kind of create what they want, right? Splatoon was an IP that was created entirely of lower kind of seniority Nintendo employees. You know, Koizumi was promoted out of the Splatoon team to lead to kind of run like the Mario team and ended up
Hmm.
producing Mario Odyssey. And so you're seeing the next generation of Nintendo developers becoming the next Miyamoto and Anuma, and Nintendo has a bright future, and I'm excited to see what their next console is. So,
Stephanie.
I don't know, not to be a cop out, but I agree 100% everything Corey said, and I'm not really quite sure if there's anything else I can add to it because he summarized it so well. Um,
Okay.
I would say Switch without hesitation, and I too, I know it sounds boring, but if Nintendo decided to stick with the Switch moving forward and just created iterations kind of like smartphones do, like iPhone
mhm,
Hmm.
XYZ, I would be happy as a clam. I'd be very content.
mhm, yeah,
I know for me, yes, Switch is number one. I think they took. I really feel like they took everything they have made throughout the years, their whole history of what makes them Nintendo, what's make them their games and their consoles. I think they all of that has came into play to make the Switch be. This is what we learned through the years, and working with the old guard and the new guard. This is what we have now. From this point on, how do we go forward? And we'll see that in the future on how they go forward. But right now, everything they have built up to make the switch has, their ups and downs, their things that work, their failures and stuff have all turned out to be not just a learning experience, but made what gaming for Nintendo for of today and everything. And I think Switch just proves that, yeah, it doesn't have to be a big powerful console, because if the games are there and people are enjoying them, the game that's going to be what we're going to focus on, is having great games, and hopefully they be on a system that people will love, and see the innovation and care and ideas that went in to create it and everything. So um yeah, congratulations to Nintendo Switch being our
Woo!
official number one.
To be fair, I think as soon as we decided to include Switch in this discussion when we
Mhm.
started this series, I don't think there was really any doubt that Nintendo was going to, or that Switch was going to be number one in our ranking, right? I just, I don't know. And I used to think it was just because, like, this console is so important to our content creation journey,
Hmm.
but this console is so much more than just that. It's, I mean, you can't leave your neighborhood without knowing someone who knows what the Switch is, or has a Switch, or maybe has multiple Switches because of their kids, or it's crazy. And the fact that they're gonna pass the 120 million unit mark this year, and pass, nobody ever thought like the Game Boy or the DS would ever be passed. And like, I still don't think it's going to pass the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation 2 and the DS, but it might. I mean, 30 million units isn't nothing. I mean, it's a lot, but like, that's not that many units, in terms of, especially with, like, you're looking at that much and how popular the console still is, and special editions may be coming out, and new
Mhm.
games, and people's old Switches dying or handing them off to their kids so they can get a fresh one, right? Like, you think about all these little exceptions, you never know. So,
So yeah, I really felt, man, we didn't include Switch, just Wii U and GameCube, because those are two big systems for me, and because of all the games that I play and have had, that time that I spent, and then just seeing just the pureness and greatness of Switch, which is like, yeah, it has to be number one, because there's just so
mhm.
much to offer. It got a lot of people into a lot of genres, and it touched different areas like PC players, hardcore players, casual players. Um, got the indie community into it. It showed how physical is a big thing,
Mhm.
while also having a presence with digital, and then just seeing the system sell month after month for the last 5 plus some years. That's insane. No, I don't know what system has ever done that.
Yeah.
Yes, PlayStation. I mean, yes, PlayStation 2 has sold a lot. Xbox has sold a lot. But I'm just like, when your NPD, even if your system wasn't selling 95% to maybe your whole top 10 games is on one console, that's crazy. And across the world, not just America, but when you see in NSW on Japan or on UK, that's huge, seeing that for months and years.
Mhm.
That just shows you the greatness of that system. So, well, everybody, that has been our ranking Nintendo hardware. I want to thank you, Corey. I want to thank you, Stephanie, for joining me to have this discussion. Everybody could check us out on Boss Rush Media on our YouTube page and see our discussions for all the systems that we rank, and join us on our Discord to let us know if you like our list or what your list would be. Anything else, you guys, before we head out?
Nope. Do you want to tease the next series that
Ooh.
is already recorded?
Yes. So everybody, we have ranked the Pokemon starters.
Ooh,
So
nice.
we have 3 episodes where we have ranked Pokemon Red and Blue, Gold and Silver, for the Game Boy, and then we go from GBA, consoles. Like we have a great ranking, so you guys will be excited to see who comes out on top. It's going to be very, very interesting, and you'll get to check out who are our 3 number 1 Pokemon. So get ready. It's
Oh,
gonna
I
be
can't wait for
really
that.
fun. With that, everybody, have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time on Breaking Nintendo. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Nintendo Expansion Pass is part of Nintendo Power Block and is a product of Boss Rush Media LLC. The show is recorded from our headquarters in Akron, Ohio, and is hosted by me, Edward Varnell. My co-host is Corey Deary. You can find Corey at I am Corey at HD on Twitter and Instagram, as well as hosting the Boss Rush Podcast and Tower Casuals, the Destiny Podcast. Follow Expansion Pass as part of Nintendo Power Block and on all social media platforms at Power Block Podcast. You can also follow Boss Rush Media and Boss Rush Network on all major social media platforms. Join the Boss Rush Network Discord and Facebook groups to interact with other friends and fans. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.